Imagine waking up every morning feeling like the world is a place full of possibilities, where even your smallest actions can create a ripple of change. Imagine facing challenges not with fear, but with curiosity, resilience, and hope. Hope is not just a feeling, it's a biological force. Neuroscience shows us that optimism, like a muscle, can be strengthened. And when we cultivate it daily, it changes not only how we feel, but how our brains function. Today, I want to take you on a journey into the neuroscience of hope and show you how to cultivate optimism every single day, no matter your circumstances. Hope isn't some abstract concept reserved for poets or dreamers. It is, at its core, a biological reality that lives inside your brain, a force that shapes the way you perceive the world and guides the decisions you make every single day. When you think about hope, it is easy to imagine it as something fleeting, a feeling that comes and goes with circumstances. But neuroscience reveals that hope is far more powerful than that. It is rooted in the very structure and chemistry of your brain, and it can be cultivated, strengthened, and nurtured. The prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that sits right behind your forehead, is where much of this magic happens. This is the region responsible for planning, imagining the future, making decisions, and predicting outcomes. When you sit quietly and imagine a better day, a new opportunity, or a positive outcome to a challenge you are facing, this area of your brain is lighting up. It is actively creating a map of possibility, a blueprint for the future that doesn't yet exist but could. Neuroscience shows us that the more you engage this part of your brain, the stronger these pathways become. It's like a mental gym. The more you use it to envision hope, the more resilient your mind becomes. And it isn't just the prefrontal cortex at work. Dopamine, often called the motivation molecule, plays a key role in translating hope into action. Dopamine is released in your brain whenever you anticipate a positive outcome, whether it's a small win or a larger goal. It is this chemical that nudges you forward, giving you the energy and motivation to take steps toward the future you want. Even tiny, seemingly insignificant accomplishments like finishing a task you've been putting off or making a difficult phone call trigger dopamine bursts, reinforcing your brain's association between effort, hope, and reward. Over time, this creates a feedback loop. Hope generates action, action generates progress, progress generates more hope, and the cycle continues. Consider Sarah, a single mother who lost her job during the pandemic. Her story could have ended in despair, in feeling defeated and powerless. But Sarah made a different choice. She began to imagine what life could be like if she took one small step forward each day. Maybe it was updating her resume. Maybe it was exploring online courses in a field she had always been curious about but never pursued. Each of these steps, no matter how small, triggered little sparks of dopamine. Her brain began to associate these tiny efforts with possibility and hope. And as her confidence grew, so did her ability to see solutions where before there were only problems. Eventually, Sarah secured a fulfilling new job that not only met her financial needs, but aligned with her passions. Her hope was not accidental. It was deliberate, nurtured, and sustained through consistent effort. The science behind hope tells us that it is not passive. It is not something that comes to you by chance or waiting for circumstances to change. Hope is an active, trainable skill, a set of mental habits that you can cultivate with intention. Studies show that people who habitually engage in hopeful thinking, actively imagining positive outcomes, planning for success, and celebrating small victories, experience profound benefits. They are more resilient under stress, more capable of handling setbacks, and more resistant to depression. Their immune systems respond more robustly, they sleep better, and they are more likely to approach life with curiosity rather than fear. One of the most fascinating aspects of hope is how it rewires your brain over time. Each time you imagine a positive future or take a small action toward a goal, your neural pathways are strengthened. Think of your brain like a garden. When you plant seeds of hope and water them through action, they grow roots. Over time, these roots become sturdy branches, creating a mental landscape where optimism and possibility flourish. But neglect hope, and like any garden, the weeds of despair, doubt, and fear can take over. The choice of what you cultivate lies within your daily habits, your thoughts, and the actions you take, no matter how small they seem. Hope also works as a kind of lens. The way you perceive challenges is fundamentally altered when your brain is oriented toward possibility rather than defeat. When you approach a difficult situation with hope, the prefrontal cortex engages more fully, allowing you to think creatively, plan strategically, and identify solutions that might otherwise go unnoticed. Without hope, the amygdala, the part of your brain that triggers fear and stress, can take over, narrowing your focus to threats and obstacles and leaving you paralyzed by anxiety. Hope expands your vision. It allows you to see beyond immediate difficulties and envision a future where you have the capacity to grow, adapt, and thrive. Imagine the difference this makes in everyday life. A student struggling with grades can approach a challenging subject with hope, imagining each study session as a step toward mastery rather than a reflection of failure. An entrepreneur facing repeated setbacks can see each obstacle as feedback and each small victory as evidence that progress is possible. A parent navigating the chaos of raising children can imagine the long-term impact of patience, love, and persistence, even when immediate results seem invisible. Hope transforms ordinary moments into opportunities for growth and change. Even in moments of intense difficulty, neuroscience shows us that hope can persist. People facing chronic illness, financial hardship, or personal loss often demonstrate remarkable resilience when they cultivate hopeful thinking. It is not about denying pain or struggle. It is about recognizing that even in the darkest moments, the mind has the capacity to imagine a path forward, to plan, and to take action toward a better outcome. This capacity is what differentiates those who endure and grow from those who feel trapped by circumstance. The practical takeaway is powerful. You are never powerless. You always have the ability to strengthen the neural pathways of hope within your own brain. Each day offers opportunities to imagine a positive future, take deliberate steps toward it, and celebrate even the smallest wins. Over time, these repeated actions create a mind that is naturally resilient, motivated, and optimistic. Sarah's story is not unique. It is a blueprint that anyone can follow. Hope is not luck. It is not dependent on external circumstances. It is a skill, a practice, and a way of living that starts with small, intentional choices. So when you feel overwhelmed by uncertainty or discouraged by setbacks, remember that hope lives within you. It is a biological gift waiting to be strengthened and nurtured. The prefrontal cortex is ready to imagine, plan, and strategize. Dopamine is ready to reward action. Your neural pathways can be rewired with each hopeful thought, each deliberate step, and each small success. Every time you choose hope, you are literally reshaping your brain for resilience, growth, and possibility. Hope is not passive, it is active, it is deliberate, and it is trainable. The science is clear, and the stories are everywhere. People who embrace hope in the face of challenge, who take daily steps to cultivate optimism, transform their lives in ways that once seemed impossible. The question is simple. Will you choose to nurture hope today and every day in your life? Will you take the small actions, celebrate the tiny victories, and imagine a future that is waiting for you to claim it? Because every time you do, your brain responds, your heart responds, your life begins to respond. Life doesn't always hand us the cards we hope for. Challenges, setbacks, and unexpected obstacles arrive with relentless unpredictability. And yet, the difference between someone who is crushed by adversity and someone who emerges stronger often isn't circumstance. It's perspective. The human brain has a remarkable ability to reinterpret events, to find meaning where none seems obvious, and to turn apparent obstacles into opportunities for growth. This is the power of reframing, and it is a cornerstone of cultivating hope. Neuroscience shows us that when we face a challenge, the amygdala, the part of our brain responsible for detecting threat and triggering fear, activates immediately. This is your survival mechanism in action, designed to keep you safe from danger. But in modern life, many of our threats are not lions or falling rocks. They are deadlines, conflicts, financial pressures, and personal failures. When the amygdala dominates, it triggers anxiety, stress, and a narrow focus that makes it difficult to see solutions. The good news is that the prefrontal cortex, the same part of the brain that lights up when we imagine hope, can intervene. It can take the raw emotion generated by the amygdala and reframe it, turning fear into curiosity, confusion into learning, and obstacles into opportunities. Reframing doesn't mean pretending the problem isn't real. It doesn't mean minimizing pain or avoiding responsibility. It means consciously choosing a different lens through which to view the situation. When you reframe, you shift your brain from a state of reactive survival to one of proactive problem solving. You activate creativity, insight, and resilience. Your mind begins to look for possibilities instead of dwelling on impossibilities. Take James, a young entrepreneur whose startup failed after months of effort. At first, he was devastated. His dreams seemed shattered. He had invested not just time and money, but a piece of his identity in that project. The amygdala flooded him with fear of judgment, fear of financial instability, fear that he would never succeed. For a time, he could barely imagine moving forward. But then James made a deliberate choice to reframe his situation. Instead of viewing the failure as a permanent reflection of his abilities, he began to see it as a laboratory of experience. Each mistake became a lesson, each setback a data point. By reframing failure as feedback, he activated the prefrontal cortex to look forward, plan his next steps, and imagine a future where success was still possible. The result was transformative. His next venture not only succeeded, but thrived, and he carried with him the wisdom gained from the first failure, a wisdom that would have been impossible without the act of reframing. Scientific research supports this approach. Studies on cognitive reframing demonstrate that people who habitually reinterpret negative experiences in a constructive way experience less stress, lower rates of depression, and greater life satisfaction. Their brains are literally rewired to see potential instead of peril. Over time, this practice strengthens neural pathways associated with problem solving and resilience, making it easier to approach future challenges with optimism rather than dread. Reframing is not a quick fix. It is a mental habit, a skill that improves with deliberate practice. Reframing can be as simple as changing the language you use with yourself. Instead of saying, "I can't do this," say, "This is difficult, but what can I learn?" Instead of "I failed," say, "I am gathering experience that will help me succeed next time." Small changes in self-talk can have massive effects on how the brain perceives challenges. Each new, hopeful interpretation strengthens your prefrontal cortex, suppresses the fear signals from the amygdala, and primes your brain to generate solutions. Consider also the story of Maya, a teacher navigating a particularly challenging school year. Her students were disengaged, resources were scarce, and administrative pressures were high. Initially, Maya felt overwhelmed, trapped, and powerless. But she began to reframe the situation. Instead of focusing on the problems, she looked for opportunities to innovate and connect. She experimented with new teaching methods, found creative ways to engage students, and sought small wins every week. The results were astonishing. Her stress decreased, her relationships with students improved, and her sense of purpose deepened. By consciously reframing her environment, she transformed what could have been a season of burnout into a season of growth and fulfillment. Reframing also has a ripple effect beyond the individual. When you choose to see challenges as opportunities, the people around you are influenced by your perspective. Mirror neurons, specialized brain cells that fire when we observe the actions or emotions of others, mean that optimism and hope are contagious. Teams, families, and communities thrive when even one member models hopeful thinking in the face of adversity. Your act of reframing doesn't just change your own brain. It can change the culture of the space around you. The practice of reframing requires mindfulness, patience, and self-compassion. It is normal for fear and negativity to surface first. The amygdala is quick and primal. It reacts instantly and often powerfully. But the prefrontal cortex is deliberate. By pausing, acknowledging your emotions, and intentionally choosing a constructive interpretation, you train your brain to respond differently. This is why daily habits like journaling, reflection, or discussing challenges with a supportive friend are so effective. They give you space to practice reframing until it becomes automatic, a natural lens through which you view the world. Reframing transforms not only how we experience challenges, but how we respond to life itself. It allows us to see possibility where before there was only limitation. It empowers us to take control of our narrative, to define ourselves not by what has happened to us, but by how we choose to engage with it. Neuroscience tells us that this is not mere optimism. It is a measurable shift in brain activity, a tangible increase in resilience, and a foundation for sustained hope. Every challenge you encounter is an opportunity in disguise, waiting for you to recognize it. Each moment of reframing strengthens your mind, builds your resilience, and creates neural pathways that make hope the default response rather than the exception. It is not always easy. It requires courage, awareness, and practice. But the rewards are profound: a brain wired for possibility, a mind prepared for action, and a life enriched with meaning, purpose, and hope. Even in moments that feel impossible, reframing gives you a choice. You can allow fear to dominate, or you can consciously choose a lens of growth. You can dwell on loss, or you can see lessons. You can focus on what went wrong, or you can imagine what can still go right. This is the power that science confirms, and stories from real life continually illustrate. The act of reframing is the bridge between despair and hope, between stagnation and progress, between surviving and truly thriving. And just like Sarah's story in the first keynote, the people who cultivate hope through reframing are not born special. They are ordinary people making extraordinary choices, moment by moment, thought by thought, action by action. The power to reframe is within you, waiting to be strengthened, practiced, and lived. Your brain is capable of seeing challenges differently, of imagining solutions where before there was only fear, and of building a future that reflects your resilience and creativity. The question is simple: when life places obstacles in front of you, will you allow them to define you, or will you choose to define them? Will you allow your brain to react instinctively with fear, or will you consciously engage it with the deliberate, hope-filled act of reframing? Every moment you practice this, every challenge you interpret as opportunity, you are shaping your brain, your perspective, and ultimately your life. Hope and optimism are not built in sudden, dramatic leaps. They are cultivated in the quiet, persistent rhythm of small actions, tiny victories, and incremental progress. Neuroscience shows us that these small wins are the building blocks of motivation, resilience, and sustained optimism. Each minor achievement activates the brain's reward system, releasing dopamine, the motivation molecule, and creating neural pathways that reinforce confidence, capability, and hope. Over time, these pathways form a robust mental architecture that allows us to approach challenges with energy, creativity, and optimism. Imagine Mia, a college student struggling with self-doubt. Every semester felt like a mountain she could never climb. Her grades were inconsistent, her motivation fluctuated, and the pressure to succeed weighed heavily on her. At first, she focused only on the end goal, graduating with honors. But that goal was enormous, abstract, and intimidating. Her brain interpreted it as a threat, triggering stress and fear rather than motivation. Then she made a subtle yet powerful shift. She began focusing on small wins, completing one assignment at a time, mastering one difficult concept at a time, reaching out to a professor with one question at a time. Each accomplishment, no matter how minor, generated a small surge of dopamine, a burst of motivation that her brain associated with progress, hope, and achievement. Over time, these small wins built momentum, rewiring her brain to see possibility rather than limitation. By the end of the semester, what had once seemed impossible became not only achievable but inspiring, because her daily victories had compounded into lasting success. Small wins matter because they create a psychological effect, known as the progress principle. Research in organizational psychology demonstrates that people's emotions, motivation, and performance are strongly influenced by their perception of progress. Even when the progress is minor, when people perceive themselves as moving forward, their brains reward them with energy, focus, and optimism. The trick is consistency, not magnitude. One step taken consistently is more powerful than a giant leap taken once and abandoned. It's why habit formation, progress tracking, and celebrating incremental achievements are so essential in creating a hopeful, motivated mindset. Small wins also have a compounding effect on confidence. When you experience a series of small achievements, your brain begins to recognize a pattern. You are capable, competent, and able to influence outcomes. This pattern doesn't just improve performance in the immediate task, it transfers to other areas of life. A student who completes small daily tasks gains confidence in larger projects. An employee who achieves minor milestones gains courage to tackle bigger challenges. A parent who celebrates small successes in child-rearing strengthens patience, creativity, and hope for the long-term journey. The brain learns to expect progress, and hope becomes self-reinforcing. One striking example comes from a study on behavioral change. Participants who focused on small, manageable goals reported higher motivation, lower stress, and greater satisfaction than those who set large, distant targets. The brain responds not to abstract ideals, but to tangible, repeated experiences of competence and achievement. This is why, in building hope, small wins are the true currency of change. Small wins are not limited to academic or professional achievements. They exist in every dimension of life. Waking up early to meditate, having a meaningful conversation with a loved one, sending a long overdue message, or simply completing a household task can all create a sense of progress. Each one is a micro-victory that strengthens the brain's optimism circuits. When compounded over days, weeks, and months, these wins create a profound shift in perception. Life begins to feel manageable, even exciting. The brain starts to anticipate success rather than dread failure, and hope becomes a natural, automatic response. Consider Anna, a woman navigating a painful career transition. Initially overwhelmed by uncertainty, she began to approach each day with a focus on small, tangible wins. She updated one section of her resume, sent one application, networked with one new contact, and researched one potential opportunity. Each step, while minor on its own, provided a surge of motivation and reinforced her belief in her ability to influence her future. Within months, these incremental actions culminated in a significant career breakthrough. Neuroscience explains that her repeated small wins strengthened neural pathways of motivation, resilience, and hope, making the larger goal attainable rather than intimidating. The principle of small wins also teaches us patience and presence. When we chase only monumental outcomes, we risk overlooking the subtle progress that builds momentum. Hope is cultivated in these micro moments, in showing up consistently, in taking deliberate steps, and in recognizing the value of every incremental victory. Each small success tells your brain you are capable, you are moving forward. The future is within your reach.